everyone, welcome back to another episode of US Visa Simplified, and today we are going to be covering marriage-based green cards. And to talk to us we have Sonal Sharma from Sharma Law Associates. I leave her details in the description box. Hi Sonal.
Hi Priya.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Priya from It's Okay Yaar, and if you're new today, It's Okay Yaar is a content platform for South Asian immigrants, and we aim to educate, entertain and empower them. So let's begin, and Sonal, help us understand what exactly is a marriage-based green card.
So marriage-based green card is if you're married to a US citizen or a green card holder, the US citizen spouse or a green card holder spouse can sponsor you for a green card based on the marriage.
Okay, super helpful and super simple, which is on brand with our US Visa Simplified playlist. But what is the process to apply for it, Sonal?
Okay, so there are two ways to apply for it. If the spouse is in the US, then it's a one-step process filing where you will file an I-130 and I-485 together with USCIS, and basically the spouse will convert from their current immigration status to green card holder. If the spouse is not in the US, then it's going to be a two-step process where they will file the I-130 with USCIS first. Once it is approved, then USCIS will send the case to National Visa Center, which will collect all the documents from you. And once it is documentarily qualified, then the consulate will schedule an interview for granting of the immigrant visa. Then the spouse will enter the US with that immigrant visa and receive the green card after getting into the US.
Okay, got it. And like you mentioned, what is the documentation that is actually required for the green card process?
So as it is marriage based, the most important document is required to prove that there is marriage. One, there is marriage, and the second, it's a legit marriage. Third, it's a bona fide marriage. What does it mean to be bona fide marriage? Legit marriage is like you've married, married here or outside of United States. But as long as it is a legit marriage, it is recognized as a legal marriage, then that's the ground for application. But bona fides of marriage is that you have to show that this marriage is not only conducted for immigration benefit. It is an actual bona fide relationship. So you will have to show proof of marriage in traditional sense, which could include joint ownership of property as husband and wife. If you don't have property, joint lease, where both of your names are there. If you're in the US, right? If you're in the US, then you could show joint lease. If one spouse is on the as a beneficiary or derivative on other spouse health insurance, if you are as a beneficiary or a nominee on life insurance of each other. So basically any document that will show that this is a real couple who is living as a married couple, and also they are known in the world among their friends and families as a married couple. So those are the documents that you have to show legitimacy and bona fides of the marriage.
Got it. Super helpful, Sonal. Can you help us walk through all of the steps that are required right from the beginning to actually get the marriage-based green card?
Sure. So as I mentioned, the first step is filing an I-130. One thing that you have to, the process in US, you will file an I-130 and I-485. Once you file the application, you will receive in about a month's time. Right now it's taking about a month and a half to get the biometrics appointment. Super important to attend those. Once the biometric appointment is done, then the next step would be you will receive your EAD card. Earlier, USCIS used to give a combo card. Now they have decoupled it, and you get the EAD card first. Right now, the processing time is about 3 months after filing. You get the EAD card. Advanced parole card is taking a little longer. It can take up to 6 months or 8 months, depending on the service center where it is pending. So that gives you eligibility to work while your application is in process. And then it can take up to a year. The next step is going to be basically if you have submitted the case with medicals, then you're not going to get an RFE for submission of medicals. If you have not submitted it, then you could either will get an RFE for submission of the medicals, or if there is an interview scheduled for you, you can take the medicals with you to the interview. So earlier there was always an interview for marriage-based cases. Right now USCIS is waiving those as well. So in a lot of cases, if the paperwork is really strong and they're convinced with the bona fides of marriage, they are waiving interview for that as well. They might just ask for medicals, and if the medicals are already given to them and case is clean, they can just prove your case. But if it is the spouse is not here in the US, then you will file the I-130. Once it gets approved, it goes to NVC, which will reach out to you asking you for documents, which will be tax returns to show that you will be able to sponsor your spouse. In the case where the spouse is here, all these documents go with the initial filing. But with NVC type, then NVC requests those. Then you submit all those documents to them. Once it is filed, then they will send the case to consulate, and consulate once schedules your interview, then you will go for biometric at a WAC center, wherever your interview is scheduled, and then go attend the interview for the immigrant visa and then come here.
Okay, so for the NVC process, the interviews are still happening?
Yes.
Okay, so that will definitely
So generally NVC reaches out about a year in advance, or like if, so for, it's important to clear that here, for US citizens spouses, there is no visa number. It's always current. It's called immediate relative. So there is no backlog for US citizens spouses. So as soon as the I-130 is approved, NVC can technically reach out to you and schedule the, like consulate can schedule interview as soon as the paperwork is complete, because they can do it anytime. They don't have to look at the visa numbers to do. If you are a spouse of green card holder, there could be a visa number problem because it falls under the preference categories and not immediate relative categories. So if the case is approved at NVC, I-130 is approved, generally NVC reaches out to you about a year in advance when they have the visibility that the priority date is going to be current soon or is already current, so that your case is already ready before the dates become current, and as soon as it becomes current, then consulate can basically schedule your interview. Now consulate takes their own time because they schedule interview based on their backlog and their work and stuff, but NVC works in the way that your case is ready before your priority date becomes current. If you are an LPR spouse. So once the dates are current, interview is scheduled, you will complete the biometrics there, get the visa, and then enter United States.
So Sonal, does it ever get denied? And if so, what are some of the reasons why this could get denied?
It can deny. So again, the basis is marriage. Right? So if they are not happy, with the documentation that you've submitted with the initial filing, they can always send an RFE asking for more documentation, right? See, sometimes it's modern time. Not every couple now commingles their finances. But one of the important factor that USCIS want to see is whether you have commingled your finances or not. So if there is no proof that you guys have some common pool of money that you're using, or then they get suspicious that whether it is real marriage, because in their minds that's how households work. So it's important that you keep that in mind. So it's okay to have different, separated financial accounts, but it is very important that you have some joint bank account which you are using for your expenses, and if you're sharing everything, you can show that you are contributing to the household as a couple. So if one person is not working, that's a different story, but you still would want to see that person as a joint owner of one's bank account, so that they have some eligibility to use the credit card or something. So if you are sponsoring or supporting the partner who is not working, then that's how you will have to show that they have access to your finances. So these are little things that they want to see. Sometimes they also do site visits. So if you have told them that we are in US, we live at this address together as a couple, they can come to see whether you are actually living. And if they come there and they don't find you and they ask neighbors like, have you seen this couple? And they say, no, we never seen this girl. Red flag, right? Do you really live here? Do you really live here as a couple? So these are the things that, and in those cases, they generally would want to call you for interview. And they can always put you in Stokes interview as well, where they separate the couple and ask them bunch of questions and then match their answers to see whether, like, how compatible it is, how close it is, and it can relate. The questions can be super personal as well, from color of the toothbrush of the spouse to whether you know what the brother-in-law does or brother-in-law's wife does or what their names are. Because normally in a couple's family, you would know these things. Obviously, you won't remember
the
toothbrush, but they generally would want to see like how, like if you're living together, like how aware are you about your spouse's like day-to-day routine.
Got it. Okay. So Sonal, I definitely want to touch on the interview questions a little bit, but can you just quickly help us understand what the fees are and what the wait times are? I know we discussed a little bit, but want to get that.
So the fees is for I-130 is $535 and I-485 is 1225, 1440 for the fees and 85 for the biometrics. Current wait time is about a year. From the date of filing, it's moving faster. At some point it was more than 2 years, but right now we are seeing it coming much faster within a year's time if you are in the United States. If you're outside, then consular processing can take longer than a year because a lot of factors depend on the consulate's availability and their backlog and whether they can schedule the interview or not. It can take longer at some heavy posts. If the post is not that heavy, then it probably will be done in a year's time as well, but it can take longer than that.
Okay, got it. And so even if I'm a US citizen and the dates are current, it will still take at least a year after I've gotten my I-130, is that correct?
So if you are in the US, generally they approve everything together.
Okay, got
If they're calling you for interview, then after the interview, everything is done the same day, they just approve everything. If you are outside of United States, then they have to approve the I-130 first for them to send the case to consulate for the further processing.
Got it. And the most important one, what are some of the sample questions that one can get asked for a marriage-based green card?
So most of the time, the questions are going to be around your marriage. It could be ranging from what did the other spouse eat in the dinner last night, from finances to each other's families. Have you met each other's families? What do you know about them? They also want to see like in terms of how closely you know each other, like especially if the relationship before marriage was not, the courtship period was not long, and it was like, oh, you met 2 months ago and then 2 months later you got married, they want to see whether it was just like done for green card purposes, or there actually was a relationship where you were so sure that you want to get married in 2 months' time. It depends on each case and the facts in each case. Language, if people are from different languages and they don't speak each other's languages, that can be a big red flag. Then how do you communicate with each other? They have love is our language answer, but it might not work for a green card purposes. So it depends on case by case basis, what your situation is. Sometimes people are like in a relationship for say 6 months or maybe like 6 months or 8 months, and then suddenly the spouse is on H-1B and got laid off. Now you have a 60-day clock running, and if they decide to get married, is it just for immigration purposes, or they had marriage on plan but it was not an urgency because of other reasons, but now kind of makes sense. So is it going to go against you? Probably not, but because you have a history to back it up, right? You have a history to show of relationship. So it depends on case by case basis and specific set, but the focus is always going to be bona fides of the marriage. Whether this is a marriage which is actually a real marriage or it's just done for the immigration benefit. The other thing that I would like to mention here is that if your marriage is less than 2 years old when they are adjudicating it, then you're only going to get a conditional green card, which is only going to be for 2 years. And before the 2 years end, you will have to file an I-751 to get the conditions removed to get the 10-year permanent green card. If the marriage is more than 2 years old, when your case is being adjudicated, they are going to give you 10-year green card. So it's kind of a bar, like if the marriage has survived for 2 years, it's kind of maybe a legit marriage and a bona fide marriage. But that's kind of how it's work.
So is it fair to say, Sonal, all the questions are designed to just understand whether you are actually a real couple? So it's fairly simple. If you are a real couple and this is a real marriage, then whatever questions they will answer, you will probably know. So about the family, about the birthday, how you live together, finances, stuff like that. So it's only basic questions that are generally asked, correct?
Well, depends what basic questions are, right? Depending on the situation of the couple, what would be a basic question? But what they really want to see is whether this is a real marriage or not, and it's actual based on a real relationship, or it is just for immigration benefit. That's what they are trying to gauge from your answers, your behavior. How nervous you are, because even if it is a real marriage, couples do get nervous, right? Because it's very weird to answer personal questions when a third person is asking about your marriage, because they could be asking and it's not exceptional for them to ask personal bedroom questions as well, so it can get very intrusive, and which can make people nervous, right? So there is no these 10 questions, it's not like a naturalization test, you need to know these 20 questions. But as long as you're comfortable in your relationship and it comes through, I think when the relationship is genuine, it will just come through how you are with each other. Probably if somebody today asked me what my husband ate last night, I wouldn't know. But that doesn't mean that the marriage is not real. But again, they are just going to look at the whole picture to decide whether they are satisfied with this is a real marriage and it's a bona fide marriage.
Does it ever happen that it is a real marriage but they are not satisfied and they deny it?
It doesn't really happen that way, because you have ton of evidence other as well, right? So it is gonna be in totality of circumstances. But yes, you do have to prepare your clients. Preparation is really important, especially in marriage-based cases. You do need to sit down with your attorney and go over it and understand the environment. They understand that the attorney will not be able to answer questions on your behalf, even if they are present there. But just to get an idea of what you are stepping into, because most of the US citizens, they don't know how immigration system works. So it could be a surprise for them, the type of questions, photographs are important, ceremony, if it was a church marriage, if it was other religious marriage, then they want to see, and they know different religions have different kind of ceremonies, and if you don't see that, they don't see that, then they get, why are we not seeing this in, because we know this is how marriage is done. And if there is nobody at your marriage, that's a red flag. Why didn't you call your friends? Why your family is not attending your marriage? Well, during COVID, a lot of people got married when no family was present, but there is a reason for it, right? There was no travel, and they don't want to put on their marriage on hold for another 2 years. So it all depends case by case, facts of a particular case. But as long as it is bona fide, it should be fine.
Thank you so much. And for everyone who's watching, I hope this was helpful. And if you're pursuing it, it should answer all the questions as well. If things are not going your way, remember it's okay, Yaar, and things will eventually turn around. This is Priya signing off. If you'd like us to cover more topics like this, please leave that in the comment box. We'd love to hear from you. Have a wonderful day.